Hey there, entrepreneurs, and welcome to this week's mini episode. If you are watching on social, thank you so much for your support there. Or if you're listening to the podcast, I am your trusty host of the Resilient Entrepreneur Podcast, Michelle Mercier. I am also a business strategist and a motivational speaker. So I want to get right to it, folks, today. Today's topic I want to talk about has to do with change. Okay, I've been hearing it from, everyone that I've come in contact with lately, including myself, around, this shift to whatever the next chapter of COVID living is going to be, right? Business wise, personal wise, vaccines, all of these things, right? Kids going back to school. And the one thing I want to remind people of, because when we went into this change, there was a little bit more conversation. I wouldn't say a ton of it, but there was a little bit more acknowledgement around the mental health aspect of dealing with change, right? And the ability to pivot, right? We use that word 15,000 times, throughout the beginning, especially of the shutdowns and stuff. But I want to talk about the opposite end of that, like what we're dealing with right now. Because for a lot of people, I think it's being sold as, oh, well, it'll be such a great thing, which it will be when things open again, right? And we can get back to quote unquote normal, whatever that is. However, folks, I think this is a reminder to you to not underestimate the mental impact of change, as well as the mental impact of what you've been going through. Okay, so oftentimes people think that if the stressor is removed from a situation, therefore the impact that it's had is removed as well. And again, I'm going to just caveat this. I am not a therapist. I am, I don't have degrees in that, but I do have a lot of experience on the personal level with what happens when you go through trauma or you go through an intense high stress situation for a long period of time. You think that the minute kind of that release happens, and you're vaccinated or you're allowed to go back or whatever that may look like, that it's going to be kind of this exhale and you can move about your day. Sure, maybe in some cases. But I want to caution some of you, to hold it with respect. We've all been through a shit ton of stuff, right? It's the whole maybe different boats, same storm kind of deal. You can't measure one against the other, but we've all been going through a lot of stuff. And I remember somebody telling me in college, because I'm pretty prone to anxiety attacks, and back then they were pretty massive and paralyzing. But what always got to me was I remember sitting with my therapist saying, well, what the hell? I have them at the most random times. I don't have them when I'm in the mix with the crazy situation or going through the trauma. I have them places like the Walgreens parking lot randomly. So I want to just remind you all that sometimes it doesn't look as obviously tied to the craziness that you're going through. So as you start to kind of come out the tunnel on the other end, pay attention. Pay attention to your emotions. Pay attention to how your body and your mind is going to react to the change, because our brains do not like change sometimes. They're wired to seek reward and to seek certainty, right? And they want to avoid the threats. So when you come out the other side of this, it's not going to be like a light switch flipped and all of a sudden you're all good and we can move along, because you may have been maintaining that level of stress and that level of survival mode for so long that now you've come out the other side and you need to undo all of that stuff and respect all of that crap you just went through. And that, I understand business strategists. Let's talk business topics. That goes for your business owners and just as a person, right? Because if you've, strictly business speaking, if you've just swung your business this way, you've got to swing it to the other way. And you've also got to deal with the psychology of people and buying and their patterns and watching the marketplace and how they're going to now interact after this as well. But my whole point of this big rant is to tell you, not to underestimate things. Oftentimes things like panic attack or dealing with stress, or for me, especially the physical manifestation of long sustained trauma comes out after the fact. And you don't think that there's a correlation, right? So, and I think I always joke with clients and some of my girlfriends when we say, make sure you process your shit, okay? Because you've been through a lot of it. And as we start to put, for some of us, our children back out there, right? Which, I understand why governments moved so fast and are pushing kids, especially over here in the state of Massachusetts, back to school. But, there is I get it from the social perspective and the needs for food and children having stability. Believe me, I'm 100% for that. However, there's the whiplash that comes with being a parent and all of a sudden like, nope, keep your kids here. Don't touch anyone. Don't go near anyone. And boop, drop them in school. And as parents and as people, we need to respect that there is that back and forth as well. And you are going to have emotions with it, and that's okay. And I'm very passionate about this. And I'm being really strong on this because one, I can't stand black and white thinking, like we're bad and now we're good. It doesn't work that way because as humans, we live in the gray, right? And also, I don't want anyone to underestimate the change you've been through and the changes that you're going to continue to go through. There was a lot of talk in the beginning of this about equating it to grief and the process that you're going through and the different steps that you're going to and the different feelings you're having. It's not going to be much different as you're coming out on the other end, because now you're changing again, right? And you may not have processed your shit from the past year. So seek support, therapy, any sort of, kind of support system you may need. It's not just about self-care. It's way bigger than that, folks, because we're dealing with long sustained survival mode level stress for a lot of us. So reach out to folks that you need. And also, just on a side note, as you move forward, whatever that looks like, do it with purpose and intention, right? This is another example of a time period in which you can choose, right? A lot of people I've heard say, I don't want things to go back to how it was pre-pandemic. And I've had a lot of people reaching out to me asking for help reevaluating their state, so that doesn't happen. And again, you have the ability to potentially make a decision about how you want to show up in whatever the next phases look like of this craziness, and you can make a choice. You can make a choice to stay the same, but that's a choice. Or you can make a choice to, have it look a little bit different, set some boundaries. Maybe you liked not going to all the crazy holidays, and that's okay. You just have to reset expectations and reset the boundaries. But, just to recap, number one, don't underestimate the impact of change on your brain, on your body, as well as the level of sustained stress that maybe you have been under, that it's not as easy just to kind of flip a switch and go back to quote unquote normal, whatever the fuck that is. And, then remember that you have the power to choose how you want to show up. I mean, you have that power all the time, but I want this big shift and this kind of returning back into society or whatever the hell that is to serve as a bit of an extra level of spark to remind you that you can, make a change for the better or make choices that are more aligned with how you want to be in this world. Okay, that's my rant for this week. Pretty passionate about it because I'm seeing a lot of people who thought, this light at the end of the tunnel was going to be just that. And sometimes it's an extension, a light, a little bit at a time, and not just such a blazing sense of relief. So if you want to find me, I am at createhonesty.com, Create Honesty on IG and Facebook under my name, Michelle Mercier, on LinkedIn. And, the Resilient Entrepreneur Podcast is on all the channels. If you want to go find the podcast and check out some previous episodes. If you are watching the video, share this with somebody that you think could benefit from the message. And if you are on the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, download, rate, and review, and, tell a friend, because who couldn't use a little more resilience in their life? Right, guys? See you later.